«Дорогая, ты сегодня допоздна?» Муж крепко прижался к Виолетте и поцеловал ее куда-то в район затылка. Она потянулась и повернулась к нему. «Доброе утро. Ты спроси что-нибудь попроще. Да я и сама не знаю. Последнее время не все, слава богу. Так что молись, чтобы этот день прошел без приключений». Мужчина рассмеялся своим бархатным смехом, от которого у Виолы по коже побежали табуном мурашки. «Я буду держать за тебя кулачки. Я вообще-то уверен, что ты совсем справишься». Она кивнула. «Да, действительно, она справится. Просто хотелось бы обойтись без проблем. Но, увы, в ее бизнесе это практически невозможно. Уже это она поняла давно и научилась максимально быстро их решать. А ведь когда-то давно она как огня боялась ответственности. Да что там ответственности? Она даже тени собственной боялась. Злилась на себя за то, что трусиха, и плыла по течению, пока не кончились силы. А потом открылось второе дыхание. Но перед этим ей казалось, что жизнь ее кончена, ведь она осталась абсолютно одна. Не на кого было положиться, не к кому было обратиться за советом или помощью. Муж. Был муж, вот только он первый ударил ее в спину. И помнила она все до сих пор. Случайное знакомство на улице, первое свидание, жуткие речи матери о том, что он ее использует. Мама всегда осторожничала и буквально запугала дочь собственными страхами. Виола боялась гулять после заката, ведь, по словам матери, в темных подворотнях ее ждут маньяки. Боялась гладить животных, ведь они переносчики всякой заразы. Не ела уличной еды, неизвестно, как ее там готовят. Не одевала то, что нравится. Всегда в балахонах, с закрытыми руками, шеей, ногами, ведь открытая одежда провоцирует мужчин. Мать по крупице вливала в дочь страх, и он обживался в ее голове. И нового знакомого она боялась подпустить, боялась остаться одной с ребенком. Этого очень не хотелось. А он лишь смеялся в ответ на ее откровение. «Тебе не кажется, что твои страхи беспочвенны?» Он выводил ее вечером на улицу и вел самыми темными переулками. Она дрожала, а он смеялся. Наверное, именно его смелость ее так восхищала. С ним она себе казалась смелее. Даже начала одеваться в открытую одежду без страха. А мать ругалась, кричала и срывала с дочери очередное платье, кутала голову ей в платок, закрывала на замок двери, чтобы та не смогла вечером выйти, а Виола сбегала через окно. Благо жили они на первом этаже. Когда он позвал ее замуж, она все же испугалась. Мать об этом ее предупреждала. «Позовет замуж и будет пользоваться твоей наивностью, закроет тебя дома и сделает несколько детей, и будешь жить как в рабстве. Ни подруг, ни развлечений, только семья, муж и дети». Виолетта не верила. «Мам, да все ты выдумываешь. Ну признай, что ты просто не хочешь, чтобы я была счастлива». Детей они так и не родили, не успели. Он предал ее раньше. Сейчас она этому даже рада была, но тогда ее это убивало. Наплевав на мамины предупреждения, она уже мечтала о большой семье, в которой дети не будут жить с навязанными страхами и стереотипами. И она с таким энтузиазмом делилась планами с друзьями, что те прятали улыбки, уже зная, что ничего этого не будет. Ведь муж уже нашел себе другую и ни от кого этого не скрывал. Видели и знали о его интрижке все, кроме Виолы, которая слепо доверяла своему партнеру. Поняла она, что мир ее рухнул только тогда, когда увидела чужую женщину в постели с мужем. «Ведь ты же клялся, что любишь меня!» Дрожащим голосом шептала она и закрывала глаза, а он снова смеялся ей в лицо. «А ты себя видела? Дурнушка пуганая! Катись отсюда!» Он выкинул ее из квартиры, которую они вместе покупали, и из жизни, которую вместе строили. Забыл, как о чем-то абсолютно незначительном и обыденном. Мама ее тоже отвергла. «Ты дура набитая!» Она орала ей в лицо, а Виола ощущала, как капельки ее слюны падают на кожу. «Мама, но ведь мне же плохо. Почему ты так со мной?» «А мне плевать. Когда я тебя отговаривала, ты меня не послушала. А теперь живи как хочешь». Даже в квартиру не пустила. Захлопнула перед носом дверь и никогда больше не открыла. В следующий раз вошла Виола в эту квартиру уже хозяйкой. Умирая, мать не успела оставить завещание на кого-то другого. Но до этого Виоле пришлось несладко. Жила в общежитии, работала за копейки, питалась чем придется и молилась однажды не проснуться. Или проснуться, но уже в другой жизни, в той, где она счастливая девушка. Когда ее уволили, она поняла, что это конец. Ниже падать уже просто некуда. И выхода нет никакого. Желание есть, а вот сил нет. Наверное, она так бы и лежала, если бы не соседка, которая, громогласно постучав и не получив ответа, вынесла ногой хлипенькую дверь. «Вот она, красавица, лежит. Ее тут ищут, а она об баклуши бьет. Вы полюбуйтесь только». За спиной соседки стоял мужчина, высокий, в темных джинсах и в рубашке с закатанными рукавами. А в руках папка, а на лице выражение брезгливости. «Ваша мать скончалась, и теперь квартира ваша. Скажу честно, мне пришлось потрудиться, чтобы вас найти. Да я думала, нотариусы никого не ищут». «А я ищу», — ответил коротко и предельно ясно. Так она получила жилье и забрежил слабый лучик надежды на то, что она все же выкарабкается. Она не жила в квартире матери. Может, месяц там ночевала, а потом выставила ее на продажу со всем содержимым. Сама так и жила в общежитии, но теперь уже не лежала, глядя в потолок, а действовала. Изучала спрос, составляла бизнес-план, налаживала связи с поставщиками, искала подходящее место. Почти год ушел на то, чтобы все подготовить. Деньги с проданной квартиры она до копейки вложила в свое детище – кафе «Хоуп». Надеждой она его назвала, потому что верила, что все делает правильно. И все получилось. Было трудно, порой до невозможного трудно. Обманывали поставщики, воровал персонал, частенько дебоширы били посуду. Конкуренты тоже не давали расслабиться. Но рядом был ее управляющий, который верил в нее и помогал, который впоследствии и стал ее мужем. Он уже давно не работает на жену, открыл собственное дело, но всегда даст совет, если увидит, что ей тяжело. Сегодня день выдался особенно трудным. Сорвались сроки поставки продуктов и расходников. Клиенты все как один были не в настроении, еще бы им не быть. Виола раз за разом наблюдала, как ко всем, кто подходит к ее кафе, бросается какой-то бомж. Половина даже не доходила до дверей, напуганная его видом и, вероятно, запахом. Несколько раз Виола лично выходила к нему, но стоило ей показаться в дверях, как он скрывался где-нибудь за углом, чтобы вернуться позже. Он кружил возле кафе, как надоедливая муха, и это не добавляло настроения. И к вечеру Виола разве что молнии из глаз не метала, даже сорвалась на официантку, которая вздумала флиртовать с клиентом. Собираясь домой, она хотела только одного – уткнуться в грудь любимого мужа и забыться сном. Вот только стоило ей выйти из кафе, в глаза бросился все тот же бомж. Она вернулась на кухню, решив добавить себе плюсик к карму, собрала неплохой паёк, сложила все это в одноразовую посуду и, прихватив влажную салфетку и приборы, вышла. «Ну что, голодный?» – махнула бомжу рукой, подзывая. Тот остался стоять на месте. «Да иди ты уже сюда, кормить тебя буду!» Целый день кружил вокруг. Неужто есть не хочется? Мужчина неопределенного возраста шагнул к ней. Она протянула ему пакет, и он набросился на еду так, как голодный хищник на жертву. Виола невольно поморщилась, наблюдая, как кусочки еды падают этому человеку на кустистую бороду. «Ладно, ты ешь, приятного аппетита. Завтра приходи, я еще что-нибудь дам. Только давай договоримся. Клиентуру мне не пугай, ладно?» Мужчина кивнул, а потом вдруг буркнул. «Ты бы к мужу своему присмотрелась, а то водит тебя за нос, а ты и рада». Виолетта удивленно вскинула брови, но промолчала. Дома она осуществила задуманное. Обняла супруга, но уснуть так и не смогла. В голове крутились слова, сказанные этим бомжом. А еще и голос его. Он был ей знаком. Вот только откуда? «Почему не спишь, дорогая?» Теплые руки мужа обвили ее плетьми и прижали к себе. Он сонно зевнул. Виола посмотрела на него и вспомнила свои страхи. Припомнила те времена, когда он единственный верил в нее, поддерживал, любил и учил жить. Улыбнулась, отмахнувшись от оживших кошмаров, и рассказала все мужу. «Да, это интересно. Говоришь, голос знаком? Я завтра заеду за тобой и посмотрю на этого конспиратора». Бомж появился аккурат перед самым закрытием. Ринулся к Виоле. Но дорогу ему преградил высокий мужчина. «Эй, стоп, не торопись!» Бомж посмотрел на Виолетту, которая ухватилась за руку мужчины и с интересом смотрел на него. «А ты изменилась. Больше не боишься?» Хриплый смех, вырвавшийся у бомжа, оживил ее воспоминания. Перед ней стоял ее бывший муж. «Что с тобой произошло?» Он скривился. «А это уже не важно. Важнее, что ты мне должна. Моя заслуга, что ты такая успешная. Это ведь я научил тебя ничего не бояться. Справедливо было бы вознаградить меня». Виола ничего не ответила, позволив продолжить беседу мужу. Сама же села в машину и подняла тонированное стекло. Даже смешно спустя столько времени встретить прошлое. Человека, который тебя едва не сломал своим предательством. И последний страх отступил. Дверь авто открылась. «Ну, ты как?» «Как нельзя лучше. Поехали-ка домой».
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.